Otherwise, anger without courage brings us to frustration. Because you see, whereas the animal live in time but has no time, human beings, we live in time, but we have time. And to have time, it does mean to have the possibility of changing the times. Thank you very much. Now, the President has asked me an important question, and so I was pleased that he raised that issue, because his question allows me now to clarify one point which I couldn't, even though I talked for 1 hour. You understand that it's impossible in 1 hour to concentrate all the dimension of this document. But his point is very important. You have noticed, if you happen to read it, the first chapter of the encyclical deals with the anthropological issue. And the most important statement in that chapter is the following: the social question, the social and economic question, is an anthropological question. That is a novel. If you read the Rerum Novarum, you had in different, the times were completely different, but you would not find such a statement. Now, what does it mean to state that the socio-economic question is an anthropological question? The answer is briefly the following. Now, if you consider the cultural and categorical apparatus of both economics and sociology and political science, apart from the technical differences, you will notice that the cultural structuring of these three fields is based on the so-called pessimistic anthropology about human beings, namely that human beings are ontologically nasty people, bad people, blah, blah, blah. In other words, the assumption is Thomas Hobbes. You know what wrote Thomas Hobbes in his De Cive, 1642, and above all in Leviathan, published in 1651, where he says, Homo homini lupus, every man is a wolf towards another man, and as a consequence, mors tua vita mea, your death is my life. Now, this is what we read in Leviathan. That is the title of Hobbes' book. And that book was, and still is, very influential all over the Western culture. Of course, we talk now of the Western culture, Europe, and then lately America, etc., etc. And in fact, all the attempts of political theory, economic theory, was to try to put a remedy to this negative anthropology. Just because we human beings are nasty, bad, selfish, etc., etc., let us try to put certain limits or certain boundaries to our negative side. Otherwise, we will get anarchy, we will get self-destruction, etc. And so, both the political and legal side and the economic side in the last 3 centuries have been like that. Now, what the Pope proposed in this encyclical is, why should we keep to that assumption? Where is that so? Why don't we change the anthropological assumption? Namely, we take a sort of Aristotelian approach whereby human beings are of different character, of different nature. They are bad people, but there are also very good people. And they are, let's say, middle of the range. To be more specific, in using our terminology, there are 3 ideal types of people. The antisocial, the asocial. Asocial means non, because it's the Greek, privative Greek. asocial, and there are the prosocial. Now, already, if you start from this anthropological premise, you change completely the scene. Because, on the other hand, we so far assume that people are antisocial. So, if people are antisocial, what should we do? A politician should put laws in order to sanction blah, 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 etc., etc. And in Italy, we have millions of laws. You cannot do anything because, etc. In England, it's a bit better because English people, we know what is their culture, etc. But in general, that is. Then you had people like Kant. Kant invented deontology. Deontologism, deon in Greek means the duty, the binding duty. You should do that. You should do that. And so now we have created people who believe that in order to achieve harmony, you need to have laws, sanction, duties, etc. The Pope suggests to us, why don't we change the perspective? Why don't we consider that among ourselves, they are certainly antisocial? Of course. There are antisocial. Each one of us knows some. But we also know that among ourselves there are pro-social people and there are asocial in different proportion. Now, why in certain society the proportion of the antisocial is larger than in other society? In other words, the composition of the three types depends on the cultural metrics. But if that is the case, there is a responsibility in spreading cultural metrics. Because we can have a culture which favors antisocial, or we can have a culture which favors pro-social behavior. So now you understand the implication. From this way of reasoning, we obtain as a result the responsibility. You understand why politicians, economists, blah, 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 etc. are responsible people. Because according to the way we preach, what do you mean by preach? We teach. Teach is a form of preaching. We form the character of people. And if we keep on preaching that people are nasty, bad, the only thing to do if I want you to do something is to give you an incentive, what happens? That we destroy the sense of gratuitousness. And if to a child you never talk about the principle of gratuitousness, do you believe that that child, when will grow up, will practice it? Of course not. That is the point. So now the anthropological question is the key question today, because we keep on organizing our societies on the basis of this. Now, I have no time, but this is the reason why Dragonetti was right and Beccaria was wrong. Now, Cesare Beccaria, you know this name, from Milan, 1765, he published that book which made him famous all over the world, rightly, but not so rightly for me or for the Pope. Why? Because Beccaria books was on crimes and penalties. That is the title. Dei delitti e delle pene in Italian. On crimes and penalty. And Beccaria was under the influence of Hobbes. So he said we should organize the legal code, all the rules, in such a way as to penalize crimes of one type or the other, because otherwise, etc. Now, the year later, 1766, in Naples, Naples is southern Italy. In Naples, a man called Dragonetti published a book whose title was On Virtues and Prices, which is the antidote to Beccaria. Now, nobody in our universities talks about Dragonetti.